Hey, Sir Fix-A-Lot here. I'm going to be changing a timing belt in a 1997 Mazda Miata. Going to do a few other things along the way. So first off, purchased a timing belt kit. Diagram comes with it. This is a Continental kit. The timing belt itself, the tensioner and idler bearing within the kit itself. While I do the kit, or while I do the timing belt, I'm going to be also changing the water pump. So it has a GMB water pump with gaskets. These were all purchased on eBay. While I'm at it, I'm going to change the crank angle sensor also. And the camshaft, as well as crank pulley seals. I'm going to change these also. These were actually bought from Mazda themselves. They didn't come in the kit. Valve cover gasket. Since we're going to be doing things with the ignition, bought a new distributor O-ring. This is on the back side of the engine. In order to get out the seals, you're going to need some sort of a hook and pick set like this. Won't be able to show you that well on the video, but trust me, you're going to need these things in order to get those things out. And you don't want to score or gouge the bore or the surface that these reside in. Bought another set of NGK wires here. And you'll be able to do this pretty much with standard hand tools. I've got a timing light over here, Prestone antifreeze, because we're going to be draining the radiator and pulling that out also. Here's the engine compartment of the 97 Miata. First thing you're going to want to do is to drain the radiator. There is a drain plug at the bottom of the radiator. Get that completely drained and then take off the radiator cap. That'll help it drain further. Then you remove the air tube here to the intake, and then you're going to remove all the spark plugs and of course the valve cover, and then it'll start to expose the front of the engine here, and then we'll talk about the rest in a second. I've decided to remove the underbelly cover for the engine. You don't actually have to remove this because you can drain the radiator through this hole right here. Just a large Phillips screwdriver, and at the center of the radiator itself there's a drain plug, so you could do it that way. Removal of this underbelly pan requires I don't know, it's the removal of like 10 of these 10mm bolts. Maybe it's up to 12 actually. But once you get it down, you'll get a visual from underneath the car, and that's a lot better. Here I've got the radiator removed. The trick is not to remove the bolts on the side here, and you also don't have to remove the fans. You can actually remove it as a whole unit. There is a 10mm bolt in the center on the back side here on the fan side that you have to undo, and then there's just 4 others that you need to undo. One is this one here. This is actually held on by a circlip on the other side, right here, and then there's this one here, which is a 12mm bolt that's bolted on the back side here. This is the front of the car, this is towards the back of the car, and so you get these 2 on these side, 2 on the other side, that one at the bottom. The whole thing will lift right up. Now that you have the radiator out, it's easy to get to the front of the motor. Before you disconnect all the auxiliary belts, there are 3 bolts here for this pulley, and then down at the crank level, I'll go ahead and lift the camera up here, there's 4 down there that you're going to have to undo before you do the main bolt. So just go ahead and get those done while the accessory belts are still on, because it'll hold it in place. Then what you can do is, once you remove all the accessory belts, move in the power steering pump, move in the alternator, then you can go ahead and take off the front covers. So first the valve cover comes off, then there's 3 covers, a top one, a middle one, and then there's a lower one. The lower one can only really be gotten to after you go ahead and pull off the harmonic balancer. What you see here is a breaker bar on the 21mm bolt for the crank. This is in order to get the harmonic balancer off and in order to get to the lower cover. You're going to want to have a breaker bar on it, 21mm socket. I've got a jack handle on it. Get somebody in the car, have them put it into gear, step on the brake, and you should be able to rotate this thing counterclockwise. It's normal thread on it, and once you break it loose, then you can proceed with the rest of the disassembly. Assembly is in the same manner. I realize it's a little hard to see, but in order to remove the water pump down here, you have to remove the power steering pump, at least move it out of the way. And then there's 4 bolts in the front, and then 2 on a flange down here on the right side that you're going to have to undo, and then the water pump should come out. So here's the front of the engine with the return pipe as well as the water pump removed. You want to make sure that you replace the O-ring here, clean up the surfaces, and when you put the water pump back on, this surface and that surface down there first off should be clean, and then you want to put some silicone sealant on the gasket itself in order to keep it in place as you assemble the water pump back on, and then torque it to 14 to 19 foot-pounds. When removing the cam seals, you want to make sure that you don't scrape the surface or make indentations on the cam or on the aluminum housing here. So I'm using a pick like this. It doesn't actually have a sharp bend, but it has a hook at the end. So what I've done is I've put duct tape already kind of pushed in this area here in order to protect the cam itself. I'm going to stick this in here and then get on the back side of the cam seal and then just push outwards on it, and you can kind of see that it moves right out like that, and that's how you remove the cam seal. What you do is you lube this up and use a 36mm socket and then a rubber mallet, and then tap that back in such that it is flush, the surface is flush against the aluminum housing. Alright, now we have the cams put back on. We put the seals in as well as the crankshaft seal, and now we're going to be putting on the belt. When this return hose assembly is off, when you have it unbolted, you have to buy a new O-ring that mates against the head. But when you have this off, go ahead and slip on the O-ring at the timing belt itself, and then put this back on, unless you want to take off the fittings over here and then slip on the timing belt. Once you have this thing together like this, it's important to make sure that your crank gear here is at top dead center, and then you put on the camshaft cogs here. On the exhaust side, the E should be pointing straight up, and on the intake side, the I should be pointing straight up. The E on the intake cog here will be pointed and lined up directly with the mark over here for E, and same thing over here. The I will be lined up over here with the I at top dead center. And what you want to make sure is that the camshaft doesn't move when you're putting on the belt. And you start with the right side of the belt first, starting from the bottom and then going up on the right side without the tensioner, and then you loop it over the other side and then drape it over the tensioner on the other side. But the way that you hold the cams in place, because they're under a little bit of tension, they're on the lobes a little bit, is you set up maybe a couple crescent wrenches here, and you use a vice grip here in order to hold it in place such that the markings all line up. Now this is the only part where you might have to take a seasick pill, because I'm going to move the camera a little bit. But this is the timing belt installed, and what you have is there's a mark here above the E on the exhaust side. That mark is you want to have pointing up. There's a mark down here, and you want that in line with the eye. Not the eye itself, but the mark. There's a mark on this cog here, and same thing on this side. You want that aligned with the E line here, and you want this to be pointed straight up. Then what you do is you make sure that things are aligned top dead center down there, and you rotate the crank 1 5/16. There's going to be a mark. I'll try to point it out. It's not going to be easy to see, but there's going to be a mark, or there is a mark over on this side. Little piece of, I'm going to move this a little bit, but anyway, it's a little piece of the block that sticks out, and that's exactly 60 degrees from top dead center to here, and that's where you want to line up the indentation for the cog on the crank as you turn it 1 5/6, I'm sorry, rotation, and then you will want to tighten up the bolt here for the tensioner to, I believe it's around 35 foot-pounds, and then you should be set with the tension. Rotate it 2 1/16 turn, back to top dead center, and then just check all of your settings as far as alignment of the marks up top as well as the bottom, and then you should be set to assemble the covers back on. Make sure that you torque the crank bolt here for the gear after you've assembled everything on there, the harmonic balancer and all. Make sure you torque that down to 110 foot-pounds. Again, have somebody get in the car, put it into 5th gear, rotate it until it pretty much locks against the gear. Have somebody stand on the brake, and then just go ahead and torque it to 110, and it should hold. Once you have everything assembled up, then go ahead and fire it up and cross your fingers that everything's aligned up. If it does run funny, go ahead and come back and check your timing with regards to the intake as well as exhaust versus the cam. I'm sorry, versus the crank below. Okay, post-mortem on assembly. You've got the crankshaft pulley down here. It has 2 marks, one that is gold in color and one that's ahead of it that's white in color. The gold is for top dead center. The white one is actually for timing. So when you get the timing light on there, make sure everything lines up to the white one as you're rotating the cam angle sensor, and that will line you up with factory timing. The cam angle sensor that's located on the back of the camshaft cover back here is held on by one single bolt. I replaced the gasket on it by just cutting it off and then replacing it with a new one. You can't move the cam angle sensor out of its location back here except to pull it off the back of the motor. So you'll have to do everything in that confined space. Make sure that you have your valve cover off, and you'll be able to see the alignment of the cam angle sensor to the camshaft. It's offset just a little bit off center, so you can't clock it 180 degrees out. You'll always be right on, and just kind of look into it from this angle, from the front side, and you'll be able to see it as it goes into position. On assembly of the front covers for the engine here, make sure you start from the very bottom one that's down by the crankshaft pulley. The middle one goes on next, and then the top or upper one goes on last, and that one will be sitting basically over the middle one when you assemble it. And then
Put everything else back together in reverse order. Put your radiator back on, and you should be ready to go.
Pomer, 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 pomer.